a community activist, social entrepreneur, founder of SpunOut.ie youth organisation, and a member of the Council of State, more famously in the last 24 hours. Would you welcome, please, Ruairí McKiernan.
Thank you. There's at least one member of the audience in danger of falling asleep. I'm not going to... So can everyone please shake or stand up or point their arms up or something? Just want to make sure we're all with it for the final push here. I know there was probably big lunches and hefty, plenty these feeds taken. Well, you deserve it, I'm sure. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. It's a privilege and an honour, and one I don't take for granted. It's not every, I suppose, dissenting or different or community voice that does get heard, and I suppose it's important to, say thanks when we do. Joe and Ferd, I've been on a bit of a roller coaster the last month, and particularly in the last 24 hours. So if I start kind of bumbling or waffling, you can blame the President, because he got all the best stuff out of me. I don't really know. I was doing a radio interview this morning and they asked me for my title, and I really don't know what to tell them anymore. But in a way I'm a freelancer, but technically I'm actually unemployed. And unemployable is another argument that could be had as well. But joking aside, I have found the last couple of years very tough in Ireland. I don't have children and I don't have a mortgage, but I am getting married and I do want to stay here. And many of my contemporaries are leaving, and many of them are bound in negative equity or precarious employment or no employment. So the mood has been bleak, to say the least, and financially tough. And I had the opportunity of doing some work in Australia, and I took that, and I had considered the possibility of emigrating. And it was on the flight home that I decided to do some therapy with myself by writing an article about do I believe Ireland is worth fighting for. And I wrote the article and I tried to convince myself, and I suppose the readers of the article, that Ireland is worth fighting for. But if I'm to be very honest, I wasn't 100% convinced. So like many other people, I have to be honest and say that the whole question of hope has been one I've been struggling with. And it was when I was in Australia that Joe Mulholland emailed me and asked me would I speak at MacGill on the whole theme of in the citizens kind of voices section. And I just didn't reply to him because in the context of the lack of hope or the concern or the frustration or the anger or whatever you want to call it, to be quite honest, I haven't really told you this, Joe, now, so bear with me. I'm kind of fed up with these things, right? And I've been to any number of conferences and read any number of reports and been involved in any number of consultations. And the whole thing of where are we? Do we really not know where we are? Do you know? So you see where I'm going with this. And so I didn't reply to poor Joe for a month, and he kind of emailed me back and said, come on. So in the end, I tried to do what I always trying to do and be more creative about things. And I said, well, how could I really put a different spin on this? And I decided, well, if it is about citizens' views, I'll go around the country and I'll bloody listen to what citizens have to say. And then I decided I'd hitchhike around the country for a month and record people. And that's really what I've been doing. And I'd planned to drive into Glenties on a big horse or something at the weekend and have plenty of time to prepare an epic speech, which Michael D kind of put an end to, really. Which was also a great honour, I have to say. So what have I learned in the last month hitching around Ireland that I didn't know? I feel really the questions we're dealing with aren't Irish questions. In many ways they're global questions. They're historical questions, and they're kind of philosophical and indeed spiritual questions that inform our politics and inform our economics. Questions around who are we, what do we stand for, and where are we going, or where do we want to go. And my sense is that there is an overarching darkness, a despair, a power grab, a democratic deficit, and an attack on the natural environment. Not to mention issues of mass unemployment, emigration, the uncertainty that comes with that. A system that perpetuates fear and control, really. And I think the evidence of that in many ways is in the statistics that we all know, but also in the mental health, in the suffering of the nation, in the invisible anxiety that we don't really get statistics for, the lost sleep, the chats at night time over the bills, those kind of things. And then we can kind of take it deeper and look at the loss of species, the loss of languages, the loss of cultures. So I think this is really a much deeper issue than it is Irish, but obviously there's particularly Irish characteristics. For me, I think it's a question of progress. Have we achieved progress? Has the great dream of capital free market promise delivered? I think we might be in a place where we can categorically say, no, it hasn't. I really feel that we don't hear much about the word capitalism anymore, and I feel that one of the reasons we don't talk about capitalism is because if you do critique it, you're said to be a communist. And that is part of the issue that we've been hearing about in terms of the possibilities for dissent and so on and so forth. I think what capitalism has left us with is lots of nice toys and lots of nice gadgets and great advances in science technologies, but a mass suffering of the human soul. And it can't provide us with even with employment at a basic level in Europe or indeed Ireland. And then 80% of the planet live on €8 a day or less. Not to mention the global ecocide. Now, also take that in the context that we can blame a lot of it for austerity and the collapses of the economy and so on. But we can't ignore the fact that the wealth of the world's richest people actually grew last year, whilst the wealth of the rest contracted. Why do we have a status quo like that isn't being challenged or isn't changing? Some of it has been touched on already. For me, as I see it, it's about an education system that rewards obedience and discourages questioning, I suppose, a lack of civic education, a lack of understanding for young people about what politics is, a lack of making it simple and understandable. I do feel that the particular religious culture that we've been brought up with in this country, and certainly particularly generations before me, whilst I do acknowledge that there are many, many benefits of that and great service that religious community and religious power has given, I do think, from my own perspective, that so much of it has taught us that we are sinners, that we are to look to men in thought for power, that they hold the keys to divinity, whilst the rest of us must get on and accept our lot. I think there's a colonial legacy, and it's not just about the British. It goes back to Normans and Vikings and before that again. I think that Irish people have really never had a real sovereignty. I think that the lack of sovereignty and the great loss of what true freedom or true land might be is actually a loss in our soul that we've never come to terms with. We've never actually believed that we're a real people or a real nation. We've had flarings up of it in 1798 or 1916 or wherever it might be. But more often than not, it gets quelled, or the progressive or the potential or the possibility for all of that emigrates. And when we looked at 300,000 emigrating in the last 4 years, how many of those 300,000 were potential innovators and solution makers and contributors to this society? You're based in Germany, isn't it? There's so many great, and I don't deny for a minute that being based abroad is a bad thing. I've spent 4 years at college abroad and 3 years living abroad, and I love going abroad, but I do want the right to be and to contribute in my own country, and that is something that I and many like me find a challenge at the moment, not just because of the lack of opportunities, but because of the lack of conditions that want to hear innovative or creative or critical thinking. We have a lot of lip service talking about we need new voices and all of that kind of thing, but really it's few and far between. They don't really want to rock the boat, and that is a core question for me. I think we've inherited an idea of an elite where we don't question the priest, we don't question the police, we don't question doctors, we don't question politicians. We have an discomfort with power. I do believe that is changing, and I do think it is a healthy change. But I know myself, I was down in a monastery a couple of weeks ago in Glenstall Abbey, and I just became aware, talking to a priest, that part of me was falling back into role of when I was a child, and that the priest was this superior being. And whilst I do respect the priest as a human being and somebody that has a great faith and all of that, to have a reverence that is bigger and beyond me, I'm not so sure about. So the idea of questioning authority is a deep one, and I do think it's ingrained and entrenched. I think there is a status quo continuing because we're focused on survival, not just looking for jobs, but trying to keep the jobs that we have. And those that do have jobs, many of them are caught in a cycle of wanting career advancement or promotion. And if you want career advancement or promotion, you certainly don't go rocking the boat. I think advertising, entertainment, consumerism and the image world of celebrity and status and all of that really takes care of some of the deeper questioning that people might, if for a moment you decide that something's not well with the world, then the consumer mass media market will provide the answers for you. It will give you the product or the gizmo or the gadget or the thought to think so that you don't really have to think for yourself. And if that doesn't do enough, then we have Diageo, we have Arthur Guinness Day as a new national celebration, whatever that is about. I think that's about self-medication and therapy for a nation in distress. Within all of this, I think, and it's important to reflect, we're in a beautiful, beautiful county and one of the most beautiful parts of, in fact, the world, that there's a dislocation with nature. Many of us live in urban environments. We've been taken away from farms, we've been taken away from fishing, and I spent time with fishermen and farmers in Connemara, and this is a deep loss for them, and it's leading to a deep anger, that over generations we've been industrialised and urbanised. And now, I'm sure you're all aware of it from your children or grandchildren, and I'm guilty myself of living on Twitter or living on Facebook or living on the phone. And it takes us away from the power and the beauty of nature, which I fundamentally believe is a source of true happiness and true peace beyond what the free market economy might offer us. In terms of the political solution, I feel that the political system as it stands is more about controlling the status quo. It's about towing the line and taking the whip. Democracy gets on with it while everyone else is busy surviving, and democracy is subservient to capital, to bankers and to bondholders. We do get a vote every few years, and it's a nice feeling to be heard and represented, but really when I've gone around the country, most people don't feel heard and they don't feel represented. They may vote at the next ballot box, but do they really hope for any real change? My sense is no. And I think that is a core issue, that there's a loss in trust in the political system, and it goes beyond that. It's a loss in trust in the actual state, which leads us into a very, very dangerous position. In my own democratic education, growing up over the last 10 years and working with young people, the fact, no matter what side you're on of the Nice Treaty or the Lisbon Treaty, the fact that we had to vote again within a year is absolutely shocking in my view. And we can spin that or look at it whatever way we want, but it was a case of vote till you get the right answer. And it's democracy for some of the people, some of the time, on some of the issues. So it's understanding that I think there was one politician, I'm reluctant to name them because I'm not entirely sure who it was, but it was in the last year or two that is actually a government minister, I think, on Vincent Browne, that talked about broken promises and saying, well, that's actually a matter of course, isn't it? That's what we do. We kind of take broken. And that's an admission of the flawed process. So, where are we? That is the question, and I think many of us know where we are. But I actually think we're in a waking process and in a transition process, and out of all the bitterness and the anger and the hurt and the collapse, I think we actually are waking up. We're waking up globally, and we're waking up nationally, and we're waking up politically and in many other ways. And we're asking big questions. And that is actually politics, and that is healing, and that is solutions. The fact that we're going through it. And there's just no fast way through it. And I think by asking ourselves, are we strong enough? Are we brave enough? Do we really want to change? Are we really prepared to dissent? Because it's all very well waiting for TDs, senators, MEPs or global institutions to react. But the question each and every one of us has to ask is, what are we going to do about it? Now, I can't give anybody here any answers, and there's more wisdom in the room than I have. But I know what I'm going to do about it, and that's my bloody very best. And I'm going to stick it out in this country, and I'm going to try and create employment for myself, and I'm going to try and advocate for community power, and I'm going to try and work with young people, I'm going to try and promote mental health, and I'm going to try and make a living in the process. I don't know how it's possible, but there's still a lot of comfort in the country, there's still a lot of money in the country, there's still a lot of entitlement in the country, and I do think we need to ruffle it up a bit. And that doesn't need to be a bad thing. And there needs to be an intergenerational solidarity in young and old coming together and not seeing each other as competing forces. So, as I said to you, I have struggled with hope in the past. I looked at emigration. But for me, it's many ways, it's about a choice. It's a choice that I have within inside myself to choose. I suppose it's about fear, really, over love or hope. And that is a choice that I can make here and now. And I've made that choice. And in many ways, the country has affirmed me in the choice, because I went off hitching. I had no money. I had no plan. I didn't know where I'd go. And the point of hitching was to see, people told me nobody lifts people anymore, and they mightn't lift it kind of, like I'm wearing this now, but I wasn't wearing this. So, but the generosity, the kindness, I cannot put words on it, what I experienced over a month. In terms of the average waiting time was 5 minutes. I got offered beds, I got offered food, I got offered thousands of cups of tea, I got offered stories, I got offered chats, and I got offered the community spirit that we're told we lost, and we bloody didn't lose it, because it's still there, and we just need to cultivate it and listen to it and hear from it and believe in it. And I feel that sometimes we're just looking in the wrong places and we're listening to the wrong people. And so there's a question of leadership. Are we going to wait for leadership to come from Brussels or Berlin or Dublin or wherever it might come from? I don't think we can. I think that model of leadership has failed. My experience is that leadership must come from the community. We must reconsolidate our communities through community development projects, through campaigns. But as Mother Teresa said, we have to kind of do it person to person, one to one. And it's about values, and it's about how we treat each other with kindness and with love and with respect and with generosity. Because the questions we're dealing with are one of values. And even the World Economic Forum found that in a study of the economic collapse. It was a collapse of a value base. And so really, for me, the political question isn't a political question. It's a moral or an ethical or a value question. I do have great hope for this country. I think it's one of the cleanest, greenest, most beautiful islands in the world. I think we're one of the most kindest, wisest, cleverest people in the world. Thankfully, we still can make contact with people like this man here over Skype or online, and I can see already they're contributing. I put it out on my own Facebook and Twitter for ideas for today, and I got so many contacts from around the world. The Irish community is alive and well in every corner of the world, and they're waiting and they want to play a role. And so we need to really look at that. How can we reinvent our identity? I don't believe we have a republic at the moment. I believe we have a window of opportunity to create a new nation with a new ethos, and to go back maybe to the founding structures of questioning what that republic was supposed to be. I believe that we have enormous potential for food, for health, for reform in media, for reform in business, for reform in politics. And I was in obviously the Oris yesterday in the Phoenix Park, and I was looking at it was actually a Donegal rug in the Oris, and it has a phoenix rising from the ashes. And people will say that that's idealistic to talk about the rising from the ashes. But really it's that question if romantic Ireland is dead and gone. I don't think it is. It's a choice, and I do think it's alive and well. So for me, it's about when the people lead, the leaders follow. And I think we need to become our own leaders and recreate this country, person to person. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rory. I think what that applause is really saying is thank you for deciding to stay as well.